Every browser sucks. I want to rant about how every browser sucks, at least for me. Let me go through all browsers one by one, starting with Chrome. Google Chrome. Google Chrome is implementing Manifest v3. This will increase browser security but will limit capabilities of ad blockers like uBlock Origin. Of course, Google has denied that limiting capabilities of ad blockers is the intention behind implementing Manifest v3. They know if they block ad blockers outright, people will switch to different browsers. Reminds me of Apple slowing down iPhones with every update. After people found out about this and it became a scandal, Apple said they were doing it to preserve battery of old iPhones. Of course, they have the financial incentive to coerce people into buying new iPhones every year. Similarly, Google is doing it for browser security and not for limiting ad blockers, even though they have financial incentives to make more people see more ads. On phones, Google Chrome is the major browser that doesn't offer extension capabilities. Firefox on Android allows people to install extensions. Safari on iPhone also allows, I think, to install extensions. Google Chrome on Android does not, probably because they don't want people to install ad blockers on their phone. So Google Chrome sucks for me because it doesn't allow me to use extensions on phones and they're implementing Manifest v3. It's not just about ad blockers. There are also other useful extensions that you can use on phones that you cannot that you can use on phones with other browsers that you cannot use with Google Chrome on phones. Mozilla Firefox. I switched back to Firefox on my computer back in 2019 and started using it on my phone for the first time. Firefox on desktop decided to cancel support for progressive web apps but continued it on phones. Phones mostly don't need web apps as they are native apps that you can download from the App Store or the Play Store. Many companies, many software companies make apps for phones but only limited to website on computers, desktops. Google is the biggest example of this. A solution was developed for this called progressive web apps. This makes websites behave like apps. You don't have to log in and log out every time you open that website. You can get notifications on your computer from that website. So basically makes websites on your computer behave like apps on your phones. And Mozilla decided to not add this feature in Firefox on computer. That's a major reason why Firefox sucks for me because I use a lot of web apps like Google websites, Gmail, Maps, YouTube Music, Amazon's website, Kindle, Audible, Prime Video, and this makes Firefox useless for me. Microsoft Edge. This one makes me sad because Microsoft Edge had a lot of potential. I switched to Microsoft Edge on my computer and my phone in 2021. They switched to Chromium engine in 2020, meaning the technology behind Microsoft Edge was the same technology behind Google Chrome, and it still has that Chromium engine or Chromium code base rather. Microsoft Edge was a decent browser despite how much everyone hated it and only used it to download Google Chrome. It started gaining some traction and people slowly began to open up to it. Edge slowly started becoming a cool browser for a while, despite Microsoft bullying users to switch to Edge since Windows 10. I wanted to use a different search engine with Microsoft Edge, but Microsoft Edge comes with Microsoft Bing as the default search engine, and I wanted to use DuckDuckGo as my search engine. Microsoft Edge kept giving me notifications to use Bing after I switched my search engine in Microsoft Edge to DuckDuckGo. Google Chrome, made by Google search engine, never gave me notifications to switch back to Google search engine when I used DuckDuckGo as my search engine on Google Chrome. But Edge did it. Still, I kept using it. Once I got a notification about something about ad personalization or personalized content or something like that. There was an option that said OK. There was no option that said no or cancel. Only OK option. So I clicked OK. Later I checked settings. The option of ad and content personalization was turned on even though I thought I had turned it off. Then Microsoft had the bright idea to introduce shopping features. Basically, Microsoft's version of the Honey browser extension that many YouTubers used to advertise. These features were built into the browser so you couldn't remove them. Then they added support for a BNPL or Buy Now Pay Later service. Though I don't think that feature came to India. But at that point, I was already done with Microsoft Edge and was considering switching back to Google Chrome. Once I noticed in my Edge history list of websites that I did not open in Edge but had opened in Chrome in the past. I never imported my Chrome history in Microsoft Edge, but somehow Microsoft Edge got access to my Google Chrome history. Somehow. My experience was confirmed about a year later in a Verge article about Edge importing Chrome history on its own. But at that point, I was already using a different browser. Microsoft Edge is just sad because when they switched to Chromium technology, Microsoft Edge was really fast and snappy. It really was, at that point, much better than Google Chrome. The phone version did not support extensions like Mozilla Firefox, but at least it came with the ad blocker called AdBlock Plus. AdBlock Plus is not as good as uBlock Origin, but it was better than nothing. But slowly Microsoft ruined Edge again. So Microsoft Edge sucks because Microsoft added a lot of bloatware features that no one wanted. Continued to bully users on Windows to use Edge, did not respect or does not respect the settings that users want on their Edge browser, did not add extension support on Edge browser on phone until they completely ruined Edge. All they had to do is keep Edge on computer lightweight and fast, respect user settings in both Windows and in Edge, remove bloatware in the Edge on phones and on computer to make it lightweight and fast, and add extension support to Edge on phones. They're only doing extension support to Edge on phones. So they basically ruined it and Edge sucks despite using Chromium technology. Brave browser. My current favorite browser is Brave. Not because I like it, but because I just find it least annoying. It has some crypto bloatware, it can be hidden away with settings. For a long time, I had a major frustration with Brave. With Brave, I could only install PWAs or progressive web apps if the icon appears in the address bar. But if I wanted to turn any other website into a web app, I couldn't. This frustrated me. I switched back to Google Chrome because I really wanted to use web apps. But recently I found an article that explained it. This is because of Chromium setting that is hard to find. I had to type this: Brave two dots slash flags slash hash web dash app dash universal dash install. And right next to it was a setting which I enabled. After this, I didn't have to use Google Chrome for web apps. I could just use web browser or Brave browser, for the web apps. Arc browser, the browser company, and Dia. Another huge disappointment was the Arc browser. It was so hyped up by tech news publications, The Verge, by many creators on YouTube. I couldn't use it in the beginning because it was Mac OS only. They also launched iPhone version soon after. Then they launched the Windows version and I downloaded it. I tried it. The Windows version was missing some features that macOS version had, but UI was so good, so good. They promised that a Windows version will catch up to macOS version in features soon. They also launched the Android version. But soon after launching the Android version, they decided to stop development on the Arc browser and focus on creating another browser that would do what the company and its investors want. The reasons given were because they didn't have enough money and they didn't have enough users. They wanted a billion users. The first one made sense. They raised money to start business. The second one didn't make sense. They were never ever going to get a billion users. The only way to get billion users for your software product is have it pre-installed on Android phones. They had to make a deal with popular phone companies like Samsung, Xiaomi, and hopefully maybe even Apple, but I don't think Apple would allow that. This is how Facebook did it. This is how Facebook got to more than billion users. They made deals with various Android companies to have Facebook pre-installed on their phones. Now they are launching a second browser. The browser company is launching a second browser. This browser will be called Dia. Dia has some AI features, but the features they showed for Dia did not promise a bright future, neither for any of their browsers, not for the company itself. So either charge users money, subscription fee, or whatever, and keep being niche, or make deals with Android phone companies and reach a billion users that way, or at least hundreds of millions of users that way. They didn't do either, and I don't think they are going to get billion users. Simple. Apple Safari. Apple has its own browser called Safari. It is preloaded on Apple devices. Safari is the second most used browser in the world after Google Chrome. There are two problems with Safari. First, it is not available on non-Apple devices like Android and Windows. There was a Windows version in the early 2010s, late 2000s, early 2010s, but that didn't achieve much success, so Apple decided to shut it down, the Windows version. So if you are using any non-Apple device, you cannot use Safari. Second, Safari has not kept up with latest web technologies like all Chromium browsers and Firefox. Safari uses its own technology called WebKit. Here's the thing, on iPhones and iPads, the only way to install apps is through the Apple App Store for the most people. There are ways to install apps through other sources, but for the most people, the Apple App Store is the only way. Apple has a policy where web browsers can only use older versions of WebKit technology. So if you use Safari on iPhone and iPad, you are using WebKit, which does not support latest web technologies. And if you use any browser other than Safari, you're using older version of WebKit, which may not even support web technology that Safari supports, which is already outdated. Safari is outdated. Safari's web technologies are outdated, and if you are using any other browser other than Safari on your iPhone or your iPad, you're using even more outdated technology than Safari. There are many articles about it which you can read. Just search on Google, is Safari the new Internet Explorer? That's how bad Safari has become. People who don't read about tech don't know this. What they'll experience is they'll use Safari and they'll use other browsers on their iPhones and iPads. And they'll think they'll get a better experience on Safari. And that's why they'll think that Safari is the better browser because they're getting a better experience on Safari. What is actually happening is other browsers cannot use Chromium technologies. They cannot even use the latest WebKit technology because of Apple's policy. And that's why they are getting the best web experience on Safari. And that's why Safari is the second most popular browser in the world. Also, some people know what Apple is actually doing, but they'll use it anyway because they like Apple software. But the truth is, Safari is a bad browser compared to most other browsers, and it is only available on Apple devices. So, my current solution is I keep going back and forth between Brave browser and Microsoft Edge as my main browser. And I use Google Chrome on my computer for Google Apps because if you are using Google websites on non Google browser, if you're using websites on any other browser other than Google Chrome, you'll get a bad experience. That's the way Google has propped up Google Chrome. That's one of the ways. Chromium is and Chrome does have latest technologies, but it's also propped up by Google through shady ways. But that's my solution. That's my rant for the why every web browser sucks. Um, Ideally, I would like a Google Chrome that supports extensions on my phone, and it's not trying to stifle ad blockers on phones and on computers. It's that simple. Or a stripped down version of Microsoft Edge, or maybe even a Brave browser with extension support on phones and removing all the crypto bloatware from the Brave browser on computer and on phones.